Hello everyone, this is Anson from AnsonAlex.com and welcome to part 2 of my 2013 video series on using Google Calendar. Part 1 served as an introduction to Google Calendar and as an overview of the user interface, and I'll link that video in the description of this one here on YouTube in case you missed it. But this video is going to focus on creating events and specifying all the information, all the details about events in Google Calendar. There's going to be a lot of information in this video, so I think it'll really help all of you. Don't forget to check out other videos in the series as they're released, so I hope it helps everyone and enjoy. Okay, so here I am in my Google Calendar, and to create events in Google Calendar, it's just as simple as clicking in the day and time where you'd like to create an event. You can actually create an event from any one of the views that you prefer. I generally create events from either the monthly view or the weekly view. You'll notice that if you go to the weekly view, you can actually click on the day and the time where you want to create the event. So if I wanted to create an event on Wednesday, August 28th at 11 a.m., I can just click in this quadrant right here where my mouse is because it's on Wednesday and it's on 11 a.m. and a little box pops up with the creation of my event. Now from this window right here, it's going to default to an hour-long event, so you can see it's from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., and all we can really enter is the name of the event. So I'll just call this a lunch meeting. Now, I could create this event right from here. It would create an event on my calendar, be it from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. called lunch meeting, but no other information would be included with that event. So generally speaking, when you create an event, you're not going to hit this Create Event button right away. Instead, you're going to click Edit Event. And that's going to take you to this new screen where you can specify all of the information about the particular event. So you'll notice it has the name that I already gave it up here at the top. Down here, I could change the time. So we wanted it to start at 11 a.m., but maybe it only goes until 11:45, or maybe it goes till, say, 12:45. So I could go in here and you'll notice that 12:45 isn't an option. But if I choose 12:30, I could just go in and I could type in the 45 to make it an hour and 45-minute event. Now at the same time, I could specify the time zone in which this event is occurring. In case I'm inviting people from multiple time zones, it will show up correctly on their Google Calendar as long as they have their time zones configured, which you should do when you first start with Google Calendar. It'll ask you what time zone are you in. Down here, I could make this an all-day event. So if the event didn't have specific hours, I could click this checkbox, and you'll notice that the time fields go away, and it's just going to create this as an all-day event. I do this for vacations a lot. If I'm going to be gone for 5 days, I don't need to specify the time of those 5 days, maybe the first day and the last day, but they're all-day events. I'm on vacation. That's it. But for this particular example, we're going to keep the time from 11 a.m. to 12:45. We could also make this a repeating event. So if this event is going to happen every week or every month, I could click this repeat checkbox, and you'll notice that we've got a lot of options in here. I could make it repeat weekly, monthly, yearly, every Tuesday and Thursday, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I've got all these options, and you'll notice when I click, say, weekly, I get to choose, does it repeat every 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I could choose any multiplier I want, and then I can choose the day of the week that I want it to repeat on. Because this event is on a Wednesday and it's set to repeat every week, it's going to default to repeating every Wednesday. You can specify when it starts on, which is already specified because we created this event on August 28th. And then we can choose when this event, this repeating event, ends. You'll notice that by default, it's never going to end. It's just going to go on forever and forever. You can have it go for a certain amount of occurrences. So if you have a meeting and you know that there's 6 meetings, instead of trying to figure out, well, when's the last date that that's going to occur, you can just say you want it to end after 6 occurrences. Or you could specify a specific date where you'd like the event to end on. So I'm going to come back to this repeat section after we create this event without it repeating first so you can see the difference. So for now, I'm just going to hit cancel, and I'm not going to make this a repeating event. But we will take a look at that later on in this video. Now I can specify where this event is going to be located. If it's just in a particular room, I could just type it in here. But at the same time, if it's at a specific address, I could put the address in here. And when users are invited to this event, they will be able to click on that address and open it up and say Google Maps. For now, I'm just going to put restaurant. I'm not going to put a specific address in there. Now this is really important because this is one of the more confusing things about Google Calendar. By default, when you create an event, it's going to go on your personal Google Calendar. However, you might have created multiple calendars, or you might have other people who have shared calendars with you that you have access to create events on. So remember that it's always going to default to your personal calendar, but if you want to move that event, create it on a different calendar, you can click on this drop down and select another calendar. I don't have any at this point. I only have my default calendar. But if somebody had shared a calendar with me, I would have the option to add it to that calendar. I mentioned in the first video, I have a Google Calendar for work and I have one for personal, so that I can kind of separate them. This is just a test account I'm using here, but on my account where I've got both of those calendars, I would specify, is this a work event or is this a personal event, and I would put it on the appropriate calendar. So definitely pay attention to that. That's one of the most confusing things and one of the most important things when creating events here in Google Calendars, making sure it's on the correct calendar. Okay, you could go ahead and add a description about the event to let everybody know what the event is what's going to happen at the event, maybe what the schedule is going to be, if there's a certain amount of speakers at certain times, all of that sort of thing. If there's specific directions that they need to follow to get to where they need to go, you could enter that in the description. Over here to the right, I can email guests and I can invite them to this event. So I would just enter somebody's email address. So I could invite webmaster@ansonalex.com. And once I save this event, webmaster@ansonalex.com is going to get an email saying, hey, Anson Alexander's invited you to an event. Are you going to attend? And they'll have the option of selecting yes, maybe, or no. Okay, but they're not going to get this invitation until I hit save. If they use Google Calendar and they accept that event, it will automatically go onto their Google Calendar. Even if they use other calendars like iCal, the Apple calendars, they can put that onto their Apple Calendar. Their email will be able to read that it is an event, and you can kind of transfer those events between calendars. I could add an attachment if there was like a flyer associated with this event, some kind of marketing material. I could go ahead and add that in there. I can change the event color down here. Now, I would be really careful about doing this because if you remember from the first video in this series, I talked about, and I'll show you while I'm talking about it now. If I go back, I know we didn't save that event, but I'll just recreate it here in a second. Each calendar has a specific color associated with it. So when you see all of these events on your calendar, and I think I have one here, my test event, and then we have a couple here in September, you'll notice that I can tell which calendar they're on based on the color. So when I go in here and I create an event for Wednesday at, what did we say, 11 to 12:45, if I go ahead and I change this event color down here, then I'm no longer going to know just by looking at it which calendar it's on. So I would only use this for very specific situations. Generally, I would leave that calendar as the default color because it's going to be the color of the calendar, so it's going to be easier to tell which calendar it's on. That's definitely up to you, however, but I just wanted to let you know that that can be confusing. All right, and we'll just put restaurant back in here. All right, so I'm going to leave the event color. Down here, below event color, I can specify the reminders that I'd like to receive for this event. So by default, you're going to receive a pop-up 10 minutes before the event. Now, if that is a meeting and you're going to be in your office anyways, and it's going to be a meeting in your office, 10 minutes is probably enough time. However, for a lot of events, we might need more time to prepare for it. So we can actually change this to, pop up 30 minutes before. Be aware that this pop-up is only going to come if you are connected to the internet and you're logged into your Google account. Now, if you have Google Calendar on your mobile phone, or you have it synced with your iCalendar, if you have an iPhone, you will still get a pop-up on your phone as well. However, I check my email all the time. I get it as it comes in. So a lot of times I like to have myself emailed 10 minutes before. Or if it's a big event, like when I have to pay bills, I might have myself emailed 1 week before the event is due. So that way I have a whole week to get that bill paid and figure out what I need to do with my finances. So it really depends on the event, but notice that you definitely have a lot of options here. You can do it by minutes, hours, days, or even weeks. You can also create multiple reminders for a single event. So maybe you want an email a week before, you want to pop up 10 minutes before, and then you also want an email a day before, just so you don't forget. So you can go ahead and you can add all 3 of those reminders, and that way you're not going to forget about this event. So this is a really, really useful feature of Google Calendar. Then down here at the bottom, you've got just a couple of kind of minor options. You can specify whether you are going to be shown as available or busy. And I'm just going to enter the name of this event. I noticed that I forgot to do that the second time around here. We'll just call it lunch meeting. But by default, it's going to show you as busy. And all that means is if another Google Calendar user tries to invite you to another event at the same time, it's going to say, you can still invite this person, but just to let you know, they have another event scheduled for that time, so they are busy, in which case the person creating that event could change the time a little bit to make sure that you'd be able to attend. And then the default privacy is basically you can see it and other guests can see it. I don't tend to change these privacy settings. Some of you who might want to create public calendars, maybe you've got a business and you're doing special events, you could make this event public and you'd have to go in and make your calendar public, which I'll show you later on in this video series. And then anybody would be able to see the events. They wouldn't have to log into a Google account. But if you're using this for your personal or work, you definitely want to leave this either as default or private. And if you want to learn more, you can definitely click on this link here at the bottom. The last thing I'd like to show you before we go ahead and create this event is that over here on the right, you can specify the permissions that your guests have. So you can specify whether they have access to invite other people or not, whether they can see others that are invited, and whether or not they can modify the event, which would mean change the time of the event, change the description, all of that sort of thing. So generally speaking, you probably don't want them to modify it unless you're just really trying to collaborate and you want to give them free reign on handling these events here. Inviting others, that's also one that you might not want them to do. Maybe you want a specific group of people coming and you want to be in control of the guest list. You could go ahead and uncheck that checkbox. Oops, I checked it again. So that your guests could not invite other people. And then whether or not they can see the guest list, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So once you've got all this information specified in here, and I'm just going to add a quick description here. This is a lunch meeting with a potential client. All right. So once you're ready, you can go ahead and hit save. And you're going to get a pop-up asking whether or not you want to send invitations to guests. What that means is, do you want to send them an email letting them know that you've invited them to this event? That's generally a good idea. If they already know that they're going to be invited, maybe you don't need to send it, and the event will just appear on their calendar. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to send them an invitation, so you can go ahead and hit send. And you'll notice that I now have an event called Lunch Meeting on Wednesday, August 28th at 11 p.m. If I click on the title of this event, I'm going to get the little pop-up box that kind of gives me some basic information about this event, what time it's at, where it is. You'll notice that I have the option to click map here. So like I said, if you enter an address, that's where people could click map and it would take them to Google Maps and show them where the location is. And then I can specify whether I'm going yes, no, or maybe. If I decided that I no longer wanted to have this event, I could go ahead and I could click delete right from here, and that event would be deleted. If I wanted to change some information about that event, I could go ahead and I could click on the Edit Event button. Now remember, we didn't make a repeating event, so if I look into September here, I'm not seeing that lunch meeting any other times. It's only happening once. However, let's take a look at what it would look like if I did repeat this event. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to click Edit Event. And this time I'm just going to click the repeat checkbox and I'm going to make it repeat weekly every week on Wednesday. That's fine for this example. Again, you would specify it specifically for your situation. So I'm going to click Done, and then I'm going to click Save up here at the top. It's going to ask if I want to send updates, letting my guests know that, hey, this event is now going to be a repeating event. In this scenario, I probably wouldn't necessarily need to send that out. However, if I was changing the time of the event, it would also ask me, do you want to send an update to your guests? In which case, it would be really important to send an email update so that they see that the event time has been changed. So I'm just going to hit Not Send in this case. And now if we go ahead and we look here into September, we'll see that every Wednesday at 11 a.m. I have a lunch meeting scheduled, and that is going to repeat forever. So I can go through October, November. As far as I go, I'm going to see that event. Now, when this becomes really, really cool is when you start adding your bills and that sort of thing. I actually have a tutorial I did a few years ago on doing bill pay reminders with Google Calendar. I'll link that in the description of this video since I'm mentioning it. But I do want to show you that, let's say you've got rent is due the first of every month. So you could click in here and you could go ahead and edit an event. And I'm just going to create one real quick here. I'm just going to call it rent. And I'm going to make it repeat monthly. And we'll just say, do we want to repeat it every monthly by the day of the week? So the first Sunday of the month, or the day of the month, the actual first of each month. In this case, we're talking about rent. It's going to be due on the first of each month. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. So I'm going to have it repeat on the day of the month, and I'm going to have it never end. When I hit done, you'll see that that repeat is in there. It's an all-day event. There isn't a specific time where I have to pay rent. And then I could specify all this other information if I wanted to, maybe an email 1 week before so I don't forget to pay rent. And then maybe even an email 1 day before, so I really don't forget to pay rent. You definitely don't want to get an eviction letter, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click Save on this event now, and you'll notice that on September 1st, I've got a rent event. On October 1st, I've got another rent event. If I keep going, here we've got November 1st, and that's going to go on forever. So now, just to add to our little example that we've got going on here, let's say I get paid every other Friday. So here on Friday the 6th, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add another event, and I'm going to call it Payday. And this is a repeating event that repeats not weekly, it's bi-weekly. So it repeats every 2 weeks on Friday. That sounds how a pay period would go. And I'm going to say that that never ends, hopefully, cross our fingers. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit done. Now, I'm not going to put a reminder for this event. I don't need to get reminded when I get paid. I generally know. That's one of those events that I just tend not to forget for whatever reason. Go figure, right? So now that I've got my information about this event, again, I could enter where, the description, I could add guests, but I don't have any guests for my payday. That's just me. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit save on this event. And you'll notice that now I've got my payday on my calendar every 2 weeks. So I can really gauge, I can see, okay, I have to pay rent on September 1st. Then I've got 2 paydays before I have to pay rent again. So maybe this first payday, I can use that to pay all my other bills, which you could add to this calendar. And then this second payday, I know I'm not going to get paid again till the 4th. So I got to save this second payday up so I can pay my rent on October 1st. So now that's just one example of how you can use Google Calendar to really gauge out your life. And if you've ever gotten paid on a bi-weekly basis, you know that there aren't too many months where you get 3 paydays in 1 month, but there are a couple. So you could go through your calendar here and you could say, where's one of those months? Here's one, November 1st, November 15th, and November 29th. I would have a 3 payday month. So those are pretty nice. So it definitely helps you kind of plan out for the long term. Remember to create your events on the correct calendar. Again, that's probably the most common mistake that happens here in Google Calendar. Stay tuned to more videos in this series. I'm definitely going to be creating one on using resource calendars, creating resource calendars here in Google Calendar so you can book rooms for organizations so you don't overbook a room. You can schedule things. I know that's one that a lot of people have asked about. I'm going to talk about Calendar Labs. We're going to go into our calendar settings and really dig deep and see what type of options we've got here in Google Calendar. But at this point, you should be able to navigate throughout your calendar and you should be able to start creating events. So I would just start playing around and seeing what you can discover on your own, and stay tuned for more videos here. If you enjoyed this one, if you found it helpful, I would really appreciate a thumbs up here on YouTube. And if you want to see more technology tips and tutorials, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That's all I have for you today. This is Anson from AnsonAlex.com.